How to make every scene in your novel as powerful as it can be. How can it be done? What can you do to make that a reality? We're going to be answering those questions and more, and we're starting right now. As a writer, you set out to write a novel. You want to write a novel that's going to be read hundreds of years from now, something that will become a literary classic. But there's a problem. The problem is that you feel overwhelmed trying to write a full 500-page novel. Where do you begin? How do you write 500 pages? When you walk into a bookstore and you see a 500-page novel and you ask, how is this done? How did the writer come up with something? Even when you look at Stephen King's The Stand, it's over 1,000 pages. How did he write so much? Well, the secret is, don't look at it as you're writing a novel. You want to look at it as you're writing a scene. One scene that leads to the next. One scene that follows another until you go from the beginning until the end. You're not writing a novel, you're writing a scene. And each scene has its own beginning, middle, and end. Each scene is powerful. Each scene reveals information about characters and the story that flows into the next scene, that it too has its own beginning, middle, and end. Your goal is to create one scene at a time. You're not writing a novel, you're writing a scene. And each one of those scenes will stack up against each other until you go from the beginning, the middle, until the end. A scene is nothing more than a story unto itself. Every scene has to be justified. You don't want to write a scene, you don't want to write characters just standing around talking about nothing. This is what hurts a novel. This is why the majority of novels get rejected by literary agents, because what's happening doesn't flow. A story should feel like an arrow flowing forward, like an airplane going down the runway track, getting faster as it goes. When you write about people just standing around talking, the reader cannot sense any movement. They cannot feel any justification for why this is happening. This is why you want to write a scene. A scene has characters, it has a location, it has the introduction of the characters, and maybe all the characters are in the scene at the very beginning, or maybe some, only to then have some come in later in the scene, if necessary. But all the characters are there for a reason. And these characters they all have their own goal, their own intention. They want something. But they act as each other's obstacle. And they have want to be required they have to want information. They want something. You don't want to write a scene where characters are just standing around doing nothing. You want these characters wanting to acquire something mental, physical, or something. Something is driving them. Every character in a scene needs something. And this is what you can say overall about a book. All the characters are on a journey within a novel, but that is what's happening within the scene itself. The characters are introduced, their want is introduced, and then there is a dance of trying to acquire that information. And the more conflict you add to a scene, the more it's going to be enjoyable. You don't want to write a scene where a character wants something and they get it and that's it. It creates for a boring story. The more obstacles you can put in the way of a character acquiring their want, the more the reader is going to be interested in wanting to read on. And eventually that scene will come to an end. The character will either acquire their want or they have failed to acquire, which then leads to the next scene, in which the next scene could be the same location, or you now change to a different location. As an author, you now introduce that scene where the location is taking place. You introduce the characters. The reader has to know what the characters want. And as they dance with their conflicts, they either acquire or not. But the whole time the story is moving forward. When you're a writer, you don't want to sit down and just say, I'm writing a 1,000-page book. What you want to do is say, I'm writing one scene and then another scene and then another until eventually you get to the end. And that end could be 500 or it could be 1,000 pages. But you're writing one scene that flows into the next. Ask any writer, and they will tell you that any scene written has to do one of two things. Either one is reveal character, or two, important information has been revealed at that moment that will then allow the next scene to take place. As a writer, you shouldn't be able to rearrange the scenes in your book and still have the book make sense. That shouldn't happen. If you look at any successful novel, all the scenes take place when they have to. The information that is revealed in one page then unlocks. It's like being walking down a hallway where you come up to a door and then you unlock it. That then gives you access to a key in which you walk down the hallway and use that key to unlock the next door. And then when you go through that door, you get another key. You can't unlock the door unless you have unlocked the previous door. And that is what your novel is doing. It is revealing a character or information that unlocks the next scene. The protagonist will now carry that new information to the next scene in which they will acquire new information that will then unlock the next scene. A great example of this is Mario Puzo's novel, The Godfather. Every scene is necessary because every scene in his book was doing one of two things. Either revealing character or giving new information that moved the story forward. When revealing character, you don't want to tell us that a character is good or bad. We have to see it for ourselves. If they're bad, write a scene in which they're doing something bad, in which the reader can determine for themselves that the character is bad. If the character is said to be good, don't tell us they're good. Let us see a scene in which they're doing something good. Normally these happen in the beginning of the novel, allowing the reader to establish who is good and who is bad through their actions, not just because we were told they were good or bad. We saw it happen. Now, the next thing you want to do is reveal information that is critical for the story to move forward, like reading Agatha Christie. In order for the detective to determine who is guilty, new information has to be presented in a timely manner. Just like in Mario Puzo's The Godfather, about a mafia family, information had to be revealed timely. It couldn't just be all scattered about. You shouldn't be able to rearrange the scenes in your book and have it make sense. That can't happen. And if you can take a scene out of your book and have it work, then that scene shouldn't have been in there to begin with. Every scene in your novel is like a train. Each train has its own compartment that pulls the one behind it. And the train has the engine, but each compartment has a hook that attaches to the next compartment and they pull each other. If you take one of those compartments away, the ones in the back won't move. The engine will keep going forward, but the compartments in the back will stop because a critical scene was taken away. Just like how in your novel, if you take a scene out of your novel, the novel shouldn't be able to keep going forward. If you take a critical scene out of The Godfather, the people watching or reading the book are going to be confused. They're going to be wondering, why is this happening? Because all of a sudden a scene is taken out, the rest of the movie doesn't make sense. If a critical scene is taken out of your book, then the rest of your book shouldn't make sense because information is being revealed in each scene that allows the next scene to move forward. Every novel comes down to the last scene. The last scene in a book sums up everything. That is what you were aiming for. That is what the reader wants. In order for that last scene to have power, you have to create a scene before it that justifies that final scene. And then when you create that scene before, you need another scene ahead of it to justify that second to last scene. And basically, when you're writing a novel, you're basically working backwards. You're coming up with a very powerful ending. But now you have to go from the beginning to the ending with scenes that follow one another, that that flow from one to the other till you get to the end, and you have that very powerful ending. You need a scene before the powerful ending and a scene before that, before that, before that, in which information is being revealed, leading up to that big final climactic ending. And each one of those scenes will work backwards until eventually you get to the beginning of your novel. A lot of successful novel writers will come up with the ending first, and then they look at what is the opposite to that ending, and that is their beginning. Now the question is, how do you go from the beginning to the end and have it justifiable? You can't have someone good becoming bad all of a sudden at the end for no reason. You need to have scenes that lead up to why someone good became bad or why someone bad became good. Things have to happen in order for that big climactic ending to be justifiable. Why does it work? And as a writer, it's like writing a novel is like walking up a flight of stairs. You don't jump 2 or 3 stairs, and you don't go from the bottom to the top in one big jump. You take it one step at a time. And no matter how high up the second floor is, as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you will eventually walk up that staircase till you get to the next floor. Same thing with your novel. Every scene in your book is like a step on a staircase. One leads to the other. If you take one away, the person could fall. You don't want to be able to take a scene out of your book and still have it work. Every scene has to be there, one leading to the other, moving to the climactic ending that the reader wants to see. In The Godfather, we see Michael starting off very happy, with a smile, wearing the American military uniform. By the end of the movie, we see Michael looking cold, like he sold his soul to the devil, wearing a suit and tie, but he has a very mean, cold look in his eye, with no smile. Mario Puzo knew what he was doing. Now the question is, how do we take Michael, who is smiling and laughing, wearing the American military uniform in the beginning, to making him look like the devil at the end? Every scene in the novel leads up to that and justifies it. Because as a writer, you want to be able to come up with a scene, an image, an idea, the final image of your novel. And you want it to make it powerful. But a scene at the end means nothing unless the opposite is at the beginning. And so the person reading can see the character arc from beginning to end. If you see Michael just looking like the devil at the end and that's it, it means nothing. But when you see Michael with a smile on his face at the beginning and you see him cold at the end, it's big, it's powerful. Now the question is, how did you get there? How do you take Michael from smiling at the beginning to looking like the devil at the end? And every scene in The Godfather leads up to that. It justifies it. Each scene leads into the next, taking Michael down the path where he goes from being happy to looking like the devil in charge of organized crime. And Mario Puzo knew what he was doing. And as a writer, this is what you want to aim for. Come up with the last image in your mind of what your book is going to be. And then ask yourself, what is the opposite? That is your beginning. Now you want to create scene after scene that will take the character from the beginning, from good to bad or bad to good, leading right up until the end, to the point where the reader believes it. They feel the justification. Nothing was hurried. Nothing was rushed. A character doesn't go from bad to good just for the sake of it. We've seen things happen. They've experienced things that justify the change from bad to good or good to bad. A lot of amateur writers will have their characters just standing around talking with no justification as to why they are. This is what will stop someone from reading your novel, because they cannot sense the story moving forward, like an airplane going down a runway track, getting faster as it goes. This is what you want your story to feel like. One scene leading to the next, feeling like the story is going somewhere. It has a forward movement. Don't just have your characters standing around, because if you can edit that out of your novel and it doesn't hurt your novel, then it shouldn't have been in there in the first place. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website, where I have a tremendous amount of blogs that will help you become the greatest writer you can be. Because that's what I want. I want to see you become the greatest writer possible. In fact, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below to my website, and you can visit it right now. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my next video on the 8 different types of antagonist you can have in your novel. In fact, I'm going to leave a link to that video right here, and you can click on it right now and start watching.